Hi everybody, my name's Scott Hillier, independent film director and president of ÉCU, the European Independent Film Festival. Very happy to welcome you to another one of our ÉCU Friday Live events, where we bring some, what we believe are fantastically interesting and fascinating stories from independent filmmakers from all around the world. Today we're talking to two very good friends of ÉCU and two very talented film directors, award-winning film directors, I must say. We've got down in Spain, we've got Carlota Pereda. I'm probably messing that up. Carlota, and we also have Guillaume Levil, who's down
Hello.
in the south of France. So just to talk a little bit about the title of our talk today. It's called "The Moment You Called Yourself a Filmmaker," and for those of us who've actually taken the step on that dark path and have actually done that, it's quite a momentous moment, and I thought that'd be a good thing to talk about and to find out how you felt about it and get the ÉCU crew to talk about it and maybe some people out there. So welcome to my two guests. I'm going to welcome Carlota. First, we've never met, even though I know your work very well from ÉCU, where your film won Europe's Best Independent Film 2019, which it was a great honor for us, first of all, to have your film in the festival and then to win it. And I know it's gone on to many bigger and better things. But first, why don't you tell us a little bit about your life up to the moment where you could actually comfortably call yourself a film director?
Well, thank you, first of all, for everything that you've done for me and as a filmmaker, and it's part of the path to allow me to call myself that. In fact, I never noticed when it's the first time that I did call myself a filmmaker. I don't know. I think probably it was the first time that I accepted an award to a festival that I wasn't able to go, and I introduced myself saying, "I'm Carlota Pereda. I'm a writer director of something." But I think I've never used the word filmmaker in my life. I always address myself as a writer director. Maybe because I think there's some sense of there's some worth in separating those two words, in a sense. It's like I don't like the word filmmaker and I don't like the word content creator either. I think they're separated things. So yes, I've worked a lot in TV. I've worked a lot in done many things. I've worked as a what we call here realizador. I edited. I've been a screenwriter. I've been a script supervisor. I've done everything in TV, but it wasn't until I started doing my shorts that I actually began to realize that I was creating something out of nothing. Even now, if as a TV writer, I was doing the same thing, it never felt truly real until I imagined something that was not there outside in the world, and I directed it and gave it form with the help of my crew. So I guess it was with the short films, first with the blondes and later with TV. And I wasn't really sure that I made something that that maybe I had something that people may like, until I saw my film in Clermont-Ferrand, actually, in front of the 25,000 people, and I thought, well, if they got it, maybe I have an audience out there.
Well, let's stick on this because it was a strikingly good film, and we'll play some little snippets from it now as we talk it. But tell us a little bit about the film and how it came about.
Well, I was preparing my first feature when it was summer, and I just was very hot, and I went to the swimming pool where I later shot the short and also the feature afterwards. Then I saw this girl that was there in the moment of siesta when everybody is hiding from the heat, and it was just her and me. And I started thinking, why is she there? Well, maybe she doesn't want to be seen. And that kind of struck a sensitive chord with me, because I always wanted to talk about bullying, and also always wanted to write something that was horror in plain daylight. So that same evening, I wrote the screenplay for the short. And I told my producer that I was working with him in the feature, and said, well, I don't want to do the feature. I want to do this short first. And he didn't want to do it. He didn't want to do that. He wanted to say, oh, you're not going to make a feature. You have to focus on the feature. I said, well, I have to tell the story first. Because I felt this very strong connection to this story. So yeah, I think the story just appeared for me to be told, in a sense.
Again, I love the film very, very, very much, and obviously other people did as well. And it's very interesting that you talk about having done everything, because that's what we have to do in this industry. You can't just come in and be that person. You have to have carried heavy silver boxes. You've had to have written. You've had to stay up late at night doing editing and stuff like that. And that's, you know, honing your craft. One thing I would love to talk about is, you know, Piggy the Short. It went on. It was Europe's best independent film. But then, tell me about the feature that came on after that.
First of all, I'm just going to make just a few comments. I don't come from wealth, so I have to work to make a living. So that's why I did everything, because I always want to be a filmmaker. I always want to be a director, you know, but you know, I just had to leave and pay the bills. So yeah, the thing with the feature was that I fell in love with the character. I fell in love with Sarah, and I hadn't allowed her to speak for herself in the short. And I thought she had so much to say. And also, she had a very strong conflict by the end of the short that was actually the beginning of the film. And it allowed me to do a thriller, a moral thriller, about someone who decides not to do something, which is just the opposite of most thrillers. So I thought that was very interesting. There was not, when I started writing, there was not really an interest. We hadn't, the film hadn't won the Academy Awards in Spain yet. So when I started writing, there wasn't really an audience for it yet.
Yeah, well, it's amazing. And yeah, I mean, making feature films, it's like running marathons, right? It's a very good thing to have done, and I congratulate you very much. I have to admit that I have not seen the feature film, so I will definitely love to catch it at some stage. But now I'm gonna jump off your wonderful film, even though just watching again is bringing back lots of amazing memories. I'm gonna bring in Guillaume now. Guillaume with his fabulous French accent that's driving all of the girls in the office crazy. Or maybe you're just driving us crazy in general. Guillaume, we go back a long way. The first time I met you, I'm just checking on this, you won a special jury mention in 2014. And then the Anklet in 2016, which I found just an amazing film, very subtle, and I've just rewatched it now. It's aged very well. But tell us a little bit about your background up until the point that you were a fully fledged film director.
Okay, first of all, thank you, Scott, and thank you to all the people on Earth who are organizing festivals, because we filmmakers are working only because we go to festivals and we met people for the other films. So, but I don't understand why you speak about my accent, because I don't hear it. I don't have any accent. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's speak about that after. Yes, okay, about the work, yes, I went to your festival, the ÉCU Festival in 2014, with a very independent feature film. I remember that. I remember that we drank beers during this festival and we met people, and that's wonderful, because everyone who is making films know that without meeting people we can't work. For example, now I am on 4 projects, 4 films. Those films can give me money in order that I live. And those 4 films, I was hired because I met those people in festivals. There is not this one, not this one, not this one, not this one, who are met outside of the festival. So that's when I see the pupils, the students, I tell them, I say, be careful in your work. as a filmmaker, of course, you have to write something to make a film. Of course, you have to direct, to speak with your actors and all that. But first of all, you have to drink beer in festival. Okay, so in 2014, I went to a festival. Then I came back with a short film, because I think that even when you made feature films, it's very interesting to stay in the family of the short films, because it's a wonderful way to communicate to your way of thinking. With the short films, you have got less ideas, but it's not less strong. It's another way of giving things to the public. So that's why I still do short films, even if I'm a very old man. Okay. So yeah, and I'm often a screenwriter too. And when I'm only a screenwriter and not the director of the film, it's something huge for me. It's perhaps even more my baby, because I write for someone else who is going to be pregnant and do this short film or this feature film. So it's so in my life I made short films, documentaries, and feature films for other people as a screenwriter or as a director. And in both situations, I'm happy, because that's what I do. And do I have to answer to the question when I thought that I became?
Not yet. I'll get to. I'll get to you about that. What I do want to talk about is what I do want to talk about is I want to talk about The Red Suitcase, which you wrote, and it's been nominated for an Oscar, which is welcome to the club. I've been down that road as well.
Thank you. Welcome. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about The Red Suitcase, because I saw it and loved it, of course. Tell us a little bit about it.
The Red Suitcase, it's the third film I wrote with the director Cyrus Nejbat, who is from Iran. And he lives now in Luxembourg, because when he was a little boy, he had to go out of the country with his family, because there was the revolution over there. And so when I met him in a festival a long time ago, I was in the festival, but I won the award of this festival, and he was with an ancient film of him, and he didn't win the award. So he came to me and he said, "Please be my screenwriter." Since this moment, we wrote 3 short films, including The Red Suitcase, and even a feature film, which is going to be shot in 1 month by Cyrus, just after the Oscars. So that's wonderful, and I'm lucky to meet such persons in my professional life, like Cyrus, or like people with who I can work with that. For this one, The Red Suitcase, he came to me and said, I have to speak about some girl coming to the airport, but I don't know the thing. And we spoke about what we spoke, and very slowly we began to understand that we had to speak about women from Iran who are everyday problems with the violence of humanity, but especially with violence of men. And we wanted to speak about that, but we decided to speak about a woman from Iran, but not only that. And the film proposed to show that, in fact, this problem of oppression of men and women is more global. Of course, it's not the same as in Iran, but it exists still now in the Western countries. Even in France, in the US, everywhere. For example, in the ads that you see in the airport, there are women who are not, perhaps they are not happy to be so beautiful, showing pizzas or showing carrots and all that. So that's why we made The Red Suitcase. Yeah.
It's a wonderful film, and you know, I'm wishing you the best of luck at the Oscars. It's a very very big achievement. But now let's move on to our the sort of topic. And Carlota, you've already said, you know, the moment may not have been the real moment, but I think even the awareness of being a film director is a big thing. But before we do that, I'm just going to talk a lot, because I talk a lot and I drink a lot of beer with people like Guillaume at film festivals. This is Vin Diesel, you know, the famous Vin Diesel. I go to watch his movies because he looks exactly like the policeman that I tried to get into the Twin Towers to be with when the Twin Towers fell down in New York City. So remarkably similar. But anyway, I read or saw an interview with him when he was working in a bouncer in a bar. And, you know, he's a big guy, muscly, and getting into fights and whatever. But all he wanted to do was make films. And so he did a film class somewhere, at NYU or whatever, and he made films. And this is the bit where he became a much more interesting person for me. He said, we shot this film with all of his friends, and he went back and he edited it on, you know, I went to NYU where you used to have to cut things, and, you know, there was no like backspace, Apple Z and all that sort of stuff, you know, cut them with scissors and whatever. And he sat and he edited the film on his mother's table. And, you know, shitty little film or whatever, he made it, and he spliced it together. And I know exactly how difficult that was. You have to go in and then you have to get the negative made and then the sound put on and whatever. He knows all of that. So he's like one of us. He knows that. And he said he then projected his film in a cinema. He got all of his friends together and hired the cinema for 10 minutes or whatever. And he said he put the film in, and he walked out a different human being, because he was a filmmaker then, because people looked at him differently, because he'd made a film and he'd shown it to them. He wasn't telling them he's going to make a film or write a script. He made it. And I just found that amazing, because he's not the type of guy that I would think would know what it's like to pick up a lost frame on the floor after you edit a film. But Carlota, let's go back to the thing where you noticed that people took who looked at you differently or treated you differently, or you felt that they did, after being a creator, because, you know, you're a creator, you're a creative. But it's sometimes we have a hard time sort of standing behind our films. Tell us about it when you sort of went, yep, I am a film director. I always wanted to be one, but now I am.
Well, I think for me, the moment was when I, you know, you always make compromises when you shoot. And I'm a very, I'm a very obsessive filmmaker. I think a lot of why things should be the way they should be, why there's some testing, and anything that is within the frame has to have a motive for it. But of course, things happen on set, and suddenly there's not the light you want, and whatever, all that. So the first time I saw the cut for Piggy, I only saw what wasn't the way I wanted to be, you know. And for me, it was a very hard experience. For me, I think it was the moment when I realized later, when I was in Clermont-Ferrand, and I realized that it didn't matter. That the movie it didn't matter who I was as a filmmaker or as a creator or anything. What mattered was on the screen, and it had a life completely different from myself, and that was a beautiful thing about that. And for me, that's more important than anything else. I mean, I want to make movies, I want to write movies, and I'm happier when I'm shooting or when I'm writing. But for me, I'm very uncomfortable when I am actually doing interviews or having to do press and all that, especially now that we are in award season. Because I am someone that likes to look. I like to look at people. I don't want to be seen. So if I could just be in a cave and no one knew me, and I could be, you know, easily looking at people. The other day I met Almodovar, and he said it's very difficult to get inspiration for things when you are the one who is the center of attention, and you cannot listen to people. People want to listen to you, you know? So for me, that's more important than anything else. You know, when people look at me as a filmmaker, I feel threatened. basically. Until my artistic integrity is being fed, they're like, no, don't pay attention to me. I want to pay attention to you. Yeah.
No, that's amazing. Your humility is refreshing and wonderful. I like that. Guillaume, the first moment that you sort of walked into a room and said, "Hey, that's my film. I'm a film director." Do you remember that? Did it happen like that?
You're not very nice with us, Scott, because it's a very hard question, I think. Perhaps the harder question in the universe, but I will try to answer. I started making films. I don't know if we can say that these were films, but I was 7 years old. I don't remember. I don't have a lot of memories without making films, in fact, in my life. So it's like sleeping or eating. And so when a lot of time when people say, "Oh, you're a filmmaker," I'm like my colleague Carlota. I don't think so. I don't. It's like if you say, "Oh, you eat things or you drink some coffee." Yes, I know, but it's like that, you know. When I started at 7, I showed my films to my mother, and my mother said, "Oh, it's wonderful." And then the next film I showed to my mother, and she said, "Oh, it's wonderful." And then she's wonderful. It's wonderful, but it was not enough, perhaps, because after I grew older, and then I went to festivals, and people said, "Oh, it's wonderful," but it's not at this moment that I understood that perhaps I could be a filmmaker. Even at this moment when there was the film in big on a screen and people saying it's wonderful, even at this moment that I didn't even think that it was. But one day, with a short film in a festival, yes, but in a short film, someone.
Oh no. Okay, Guillaume is now he does this. He's a producer, director, and writer, and so he likes to build up the drama. See, this is what he does. It's great to hear him talk like that, because both of you, again, very, very talented, and I don't need to, I never lie, and I don't need to say these things, but very talented, but also very aware of what it is. And I think that the other thing is, it's not this glamorous world of being a filmmaker, a film director. It's a lot of hard work, and it's like being an athlete. You have to work at it every day. And what Guillaume said as well is making short films is what helps to hone the task. And making films every day. I push the ÉCU crew here to try and make a film every day. Try and do things, because you're going to learn things. It's like going to the gym. If you don't go every day, it just doesn't work. So that's that. Are we going to get Guillaume back?
Yeah, I don't understand why it was cut, but.
We just thought you were doing it for dramatic. It was a dramatic pause in your story.
Yes, it was at purpose. I wanted to make some suspense. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was telling that one day someone came to me, and after having seen my film, she was crying, and she said, "I'm crying," and I said, "Why are you crying?" He said, "Because your film told me something." Oh. And it was the first time that I understood that, in fact, when you make a film, you don't only make a film, you speak to people. Before, I did films just because I needed that since a very, very long time, because I need that. But this day, and so thank you to this wonderful lady. She was something like 80 years old, a lot of wisdom and all that. She came to me crying. She said, "Oh, thank you. You told me something." And this day, it was the first time that I understood that perhaps I was a filmmaker. And so I went to my mom and I asked the question. I said, "Mother, please, when did you know that you were a mother?" And she said, "When you came out of me, I understood that I was a mother, but something like 10 days after, I forget. And when your brother came out of me, I remembered again that it was a mother, and then I forget." And I think for me it's the same. At each time I do a film, perhaps I'm a little screenwriter and a director, yes, but then I forget because I'm still me. I just have to eat and to go to the swimming pool and to drink some beer with Scott. But and
that's
that's after I forget, and then perhaps I will be again a filmmaker during 2 seconds when I will see the film on the screen, and when people will say that I told something to them.
nice. Well, I love that, and I know that I've got again, you know, all film directors are we're all riven with lack of self-doubt and self-confidence, and always wanting more and better, and thinking that we've made mistakes. So we know that. So it's I was just explaining to Carlota, Guillaume, everyone thinks that being a film director is this big glamorous life that you order everybody around and this happens and that happens as if by magic, and then you go up the red carpet in Cannes, and we all know that's not true, and there's a lot of hard work to
in
get
fact,
there.
shooting a film is so violent. In fact,
Yeah.
if you don't
I
know
know.
that, it's violent. In fact,
Let's I'm gonna hand over to my Mexican stallion Rodrigo here, who's going to open up some question and answers from the ÉCU crew, and I'll stop talking, and people will be happy about that. So Rodrigo, it's over to you.
So our first question comes from our intern Ada.
Hello, good evening. First of all, it was really amazing to hear you both talk about this. I'm very entertained, and I can relate to some of the things that you talked about. And my question is, because I've sometimes been thinking about this, and a lot of other people that I know, have you ever had to deal with the imposter syndrome at any point during your career? Maybe in these breaks that Guillaume was talking about, when you kind of forget that you are actually a filmmaker?
In fact, Scott, sorry about what I said just before. This question is even harder, in fact. Okay, yes. In fact, as I said just before, when I asked to my mother, "Are you yourself? Do you think that you are a mother?" And she said, "Not exactly." And when the birth is coming again, I remember that I am a mother. In fact, you know, it's not humility. It's because, as we said just before, shooting a film is violent, and writing a film, it's a lot of love. It's a lot of strength and all that. It's hard to. So all the time you are hesitating. Hesitating is one of your tools to make a story. So if you don't hesitate, sometimes you don't have the story. For the Red Suitcase, for example, we were with Cyrus, the director. We were always hesitating about the script. Do we need to do that or that or that or that? And it's always like that. So writing is violent too. So all the time I have this imposter syndrome all the time, because I think I am okay with myself, and that's why I wanted to come back to school something like 5 years ago, to have more, how you say, a label or something like that, cool paper, because sometimes you lose your confidence. But it's, in my opinion, perhaps people don't think that, but it's important to lose confidence sometimes, because everything is so hard to find very with details. So yes, all the time I have this syndrome, and I hope never lose it.
Yes, exactly as my colleague said, but also I think you know, especially when you're asked about your work, you have it more acutely, because you have to, sometimes you do things out of passion or out of pure instinct, and those things work or they don't. So when you're asked, you have to make a very strong discourse, a very articulate discourse about why you did something, or why you feel strongly about something. And when you do those things, you feel very, very, very vulnerable, because I don't know what I'm talking about. Why am I saying this? But also, I think we should embrace the imposter syndrome, because we should allow ourselves to make mistakes, because mistakes are beautiful, you know. And those who don't allow themselves to make mistakes, they're missing out, basically.
It's so true.
Perfect.
Wow,
Thank you very much.
that's very comforting coming from the both of you. So thank you very much. Thanks.
Now I will give the spotlight to Giada, who has a question for you.
Hello, and thank you for your words. I have one question. I hope it's not too hard. How has filmmaking changed the way you view the world in everyday life? Does the cinematic work color or dull it in relation? Thank you.
I'm sorry, is it to me to answer or something? It's not.
Yeah, you go first. You go first. Well, actually, to Carlota first. Sorry, because Carlota has to leave
Carlota
after this
first,
question.
because I didn't understand too much.
Me neither. Sorry, I didn't get the question. I'm so sorry.
Question is, how has filmmaking changed the way you view the world in everyday life?
Ah, okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I think the moment you decide you are a writer, I don't know if it's the same for you, but the moment you decide you are a writer, it just changes everything. And sometimes you have to really take control that you don't live to write. I mean, that life, you enjoy your life, and that it's not just fodder for your fiction, in a sense.
Nice.
Yeah, I have two answers. I don't know if it's good to say that, but the first thing is that when I'm in a moment when I have to write, sometimes I go to see people of my life, for example, my mother, or perhaps a girl living with me in the flat. I say, it's the writing time. And it means that sometimes if they ask me for something, I don't answer like a human being, in fact, because my brain is in the lines. And for example, she says, what do you want to eat now? And I say, like that. So I'm not anymore a human being. So that's a great problem. But now that I'm older, I can manage with that and to close the door and something like that, you know, and stop at a moment and go and answer to the question. And the second thing is that I can assure you that when you write a script or when you direct a film, in fact, as said Carlota, you are always asking for questions about the world and about yourself too, because if you don't understand a little detail in yourself, you can't explain the situation in your film. So sometimes when I can assure that it's true, when I go outside of the writing of a film, I don't see people the same way. It's like magical. I don't see them the same way. I say, oh, in fact, they are wonderful. And I noticed that, in fact, before me, I was judging them. For example, in the Red Suitcase, it's a good example. After the writing of film, I went in the street and I say, I love everybody. And please be, everyone, please be friends, please.
Nice. We're going to ask a couple more questions to Guillaume, but we're going to say goodbye to Carlota, and we thank you very, very much for spending time with us and giving insights to the independent filmmaking world, and keep going, keep making films, keep shocking and surprising us and hitting us with all these crazy emotions that you do. So thank you very much, Carlota.
A pleasure too. Let's meet someday in a festival and drink beer.
Yes.
Well, be careful, because Guillaume, he says that when he replies to his mother about what he eats, he goes, blah, blah, blah. He does that when he drinks beers with me at the festival. So.
Okay. Ciao.
Okay, Carlota.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Ciao, ciao.
Thank you. Bye. Rodrigo, it's still with you, mate. If you want to let's do two more quick questions, okay?
Perfect. The next question comes from Camila.
Here we go. Hi, thank you for your talk. And Carlota earlier was mentioning about the dreadful and beautiful moment of the final cut. And I wanted to ask you about regrets within the actual finished film. So if it has ever happened to you to watch your film out there and find something that you were like, oh, I wish I could change that. And how did you handle it?
Oh, yes. Yes. Perhaps it's not nice to say that, but when the film, okay, when you finish a film, the final cut, as she said before, it's like a birth, of course. Even if you are only a screenwriter, I cried when I saw the Red Suitcase the first time. Okay, but of course I saw the film before, during the editing, during when we analyzed about the music and all that, even as a screenwriter. But when it was finished and I saw in a big screen, I cried because it was the birth. And but as a director, very often I'm not happy with little details that I didn't see before. But as she said, Carlota, just before, in life, one of the most important things is that we are not perfect. So when you live with a girl, for example, or with a boy, in several years, you will see that details in his spirit is not good. It's mistakes and all that. But in fact, you have to love it because it's little mistakes that make a film or a man or a woman or a way of thinking, it makes it very interesting and more beautiful.
But of course, Guillaume, now that I'm upset because you're on our podcast lying, because of course you are perfect in every way.
No, of course, it was just for the radio, yeah, you know.
Yeah, okay, yeah, good. Okay, Rodrigo, last.
Perfect. Our next question comes from our intern, Julia.
Hi, Guillaume. I wanted to ask you, what human qualities do you think a filmmaker must have?
What?
What human qualities?
Oh la 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 la. Okay. I love. Scott, I love your stuff. The questions are amazing. It's wonderful. Thank you to everyone to ask the question like that. It's a pleasure to see you. I hope to see you in the ÉCU Festival one day. The answer to this question is simple. Is that I think that there is no required quality except, but I don't think it's a quality. You have to be hard with yourself, because sometimes you are okay with your work, but in fact it's not okay. You have to write again, or you have to make your board to choose your shooting. You have to make it again. You have to think always, because sometimes you have to imagine that you are in the head of somebody else. And you alone, you can't make a film for two reasons. Because the reason that you have a team on the set, and without them, you're dead. The second reason is that the film is for the public. So you have to think what is going to be existing in the brain of people, because the most important people in all the way of making a film, the most important part is the public. So perhaps if there is a quality, is to be hard to yourself, because the film is not for you.
Thank you very much. Those are the questions from our interns.
Okay, I'll take over now. Thank you very much to the ÉCU crew for being amazing, of course. And Guillaume, the perfect filmmaker, Guillaume. It's such a pleasure to see you. And I have to say, it was such a great thing when Guidra sent me the thing saying that you'd been nominated. Such a well-deserved award. And I think the one of the things that didn't really come up that much when you just said what does it take? What qualities do you need as a film director? You have to be driven, you have to be nice, and you have to work damn hard all the time. The time, and I think that's the thing that a lot of people, we've had people here in the office after 2 weeks of sort of sitting here and working, come up and say, Scott, I'm ready to be a film director now. And I'm like, yeah, go and pick up my light case and walk up and down the stairs with it a few times, and then we can start talking about it, because we all know that's what we do. But what a great discussion! First time I'd met Carlota, and a very talented woman, and perfect and perfection and whatever. And as I think as a film director, I think when I'm directing a film, I'm in charge of about 15% of the creativity, because the rest of it is helicopters in the sky, the weather, the talent doesn't want to come out, somebody's got food poisoning, the pizza van didn't turn up, and that's what had happened. That's basically what a film director is all about, just organizing stuff. And people wonder why we're a little bit crazy. But a great conversation, Guillaume. It's always fabulous to see you. I'll talk a little bit about ÉCU now, and you're of course invited. The official selection will be announced on the 22nd of March, Rodrigo tells me. So, we will be announcing a slate of the world's best independent films that will be shown here in Paris on the 14th, 15th, and 16th of April. Tickets are on sale now. It's great to be in a cinema. It's great to be surrounded by people in a dark room with talented directors like Guillaume and Carlota, mixing our emotions up and shaking them like in a martini glass and making us laugh and cry and don't like them or hate them and love them, but that's what we do. Okay, everybody, thank you very much to Rodrigo, the ÉCU crew. We have a couple of quick random facts that the staff like to throw at me to go out with, and one of them is that Paul Schrader, who wrote Taxi Driver, apparently did it in 2 weeks. That's an interesting one. The best known line from Jaws, "You're going to need a bigger boat," it was not in the actual script. The much more interesting one was there was a budget set aside for buying cocaine while filming scenes in the Blues Brothers, which I totally understand. So many thanks to you, Guillaume, Carlota, who's gone, to the ÉCU crew, Rodrigo for wrangling them all together. So have a great weekend, everybody.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
And Guillaume, I can't wait to see you again and drink some more beers.
Yes.
Good. Excellent. Okay, let's roll it down.